I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fuck it.
And here we go. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It's Tuesday, September 24th. How is everyone? How's everybody doing? We got a busy day for you here on today's Daily Puck Drop. We come to you via YouTube, also on X, of course, because that's where you're watching right now. If you didn't hear the big news, we've got the PuckSports app that is available for you to download right now in the App Store. Do me a favor, entertain me, the one or two of you that are listening and watching to this show right now. And I could be, maybe it's just a half a person, I don't know, to my mom right now and to her neighbors. Send me a screenshot of you listening to me on the PuckSports mobile app. I just want to make sure that people have got it and they're listening to it. But it is available. It's on the App Store right now. Right now, just for iPhone users. Didn't forget about you Android people. Even though you piss off the rest of the world when you're on these text threads, with people that have iPhones, and then you never can send any pictures, anything like that. All right? No one. So please figure it out. But Android users, my buddy Jacob, who designed the app, is in the process right now with Google Play. If all goes well, it should be on Google Play. Is that where you get your apps? Therefore, Android phones should be up there probably in the next few days. So again, didn't forget about you. It's just, I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever want to build an app, I didn't do anything. I just had somebody else do it. If you ever want to do an app, it is the hardest and most, it's not hard. Well, I'll let Jacob answer that. Yes, it's hard. It's just such the longest process to get it done. I mean, we've had this done for over a month, but a little bit longer probably. But just the fact, it's just Apple and the App Store, and I'm sure Google Play will probably be the same. It's just a long process they got to go through so many red tape. But I think the fact that we got through with the App Store for Google Play, it should be much smoother. So again, send a pic, Puck 2040 there on Twitter. But those watching on YouTube, watching on X, appreciate it. Nothing changes for you. We did the app real quick. I'll move on and I'll stop talking about it. I did the app for really one reason only. The ability on your phone when you're just walking around doing whatever you want to do, especially if you're in your car, you're not going to have YouTube up there. If you did, that would be bad. Or you're not going to have Twitter up there. I did it for those people. The listen live button, which is at the very top, is the number one reason why I did it. The ability to go live directly to you, just like we did on the radio, just like you do like iHeartRadio app. It's the same thing. I'll just say it's a better app. I mean, look at it. You compare the two apps and how they look. You tell me which one looks better. The one that's done from one individual dude, kind of a startup company, or the one that's worth billions of dollars. I mean, you just compare the two and tell me what you think. And it just gives us the ability to go live anytime. And again, like I said, it's going to be in your car. It will be in Apple CarPlay soon. That's just another little hurdle that we got to do, but it's fine. But you can certainly just plug in your phone. So that's why we did it. I mean, all the episodes are up there in case you miss anything. But a lot of you just use Apple or Spotify as your main kind of podcast platforms. That's what I do. So, I don't know how many people will actually listen to the past shows there, but for the listen live, it's a great feature. What it does is it lets you have everything all in one. So big thanks to everyone that has downloaded that. Send some pictures. It'd be great to see. And then those watching on YouTube and on Twitter, we appreciate it as well. YouTube chat is open. If you send any questions in there, anything you want there in the YouTube chat, I try to answer as much as I can. But when I'm doing the show, then I'm just getting in between, like having to host the show and then answer anyone's questions right now in the chat. People saying, I don't like Apple. It's a cult. Okay, that's fine. It's a cult. I don't care. Then have it use an Android. That's fine. We'll get the Androids up and running for you soon. Quickly rundown of the show is Tuesdays are jam-packed right now because especially with baseball season still in full force. So Rob Staton's going to join us here in about 4 minutes. As I said last week, Rob and I tape this. So this will be a playback, but we taped this earlier. And just because of Rob's schedule, the time difference in London, where he lives, or outside of London, it just works better for our schedule. So we have about 30 minutes with Rob Staton that we'll do here in about 4 or 5 minutes. After Rob, then we get John Canzano. And I don't know if something happens while we'll have Rob on the show, but I mean, it's just a wild day right now in college football yesterday. We'll have more of it coming up with Canzano. At around, he's going to join us around 10:40, 10:45, and we'll get the very latest on what's going on. Is UNLV in? Is UNLV out? What about Air Force? Yesterday the narrative was, oh my God, they did it again. They fucked it up again. Teresa Gould, she's just like I can't even remember the guy's last name. Who's their last commissioner? He was such a dud. I've completely blanked on his name. I can't even remember his name. That Putz, and then Putz Larry, they're just, she's just like them. But maybe there was something bigger at play that Teresa Gould was doing. And maybe she was, it's that old cliche, that old phrase. Maybe she was playing chess when everyone was playing checkers. Maybe this was a plan all along. Plan all along to get the ACC to, or AAC, I should say, to get them to commit financially some big numbers to those schools, pulls them away, so wouldn't allow them to go out and get Air Force and maybe UNLV if they desired to do so. Maybe that was the play all along. The only thing that I would buy a little bit into that, I'll buy into that, is this. What surprised me about that story was when they added San Diego State and they added Boise State and Colorado State and Fresno State. No one had a clue. No one until the story broke, until it came out. No one had any idea until they announced it. They were so secretive about it. But then when it came to Tulane and South Florida and Memphis, it was so public. Why? I mean, they use a firm that's helping them out. This John Canzano talks about all the time, called Navigate. Why all of a sudden was it so out in the open? I think that there is something maybe at play there why it was so much out in the open. So we'll talk to Canzano coming up around 10:40-ish. Bill Krueger will stop on by. Yes, baseball season's still here. Yes, they're still alive. Yes, I want them to win. We covered that yesterday. Bryce Miller was fantastic last night, so we'll get into that coming up with Bill Krueger at around 11:10 or so, maybe 11:15, and then, of course, Hey, What the Puck. But I want to get to Rob Staton. Again, just as everyone knows, we have to record this with Rob just because of the timing situation that both he and I have. So Rob and I spent about 30 minutes talking about the Seahawks win against the Dolphins, which was great. And then we talked about the defense. We talked about the play of the running back, Zach Charbonnet. And Rob brought something up in this conversation that I want to discuss later, maybe today or maybe tomorrow, in the next few days, is this idea that the running back has gone away. And I thought Rob did a good job, and myself, a good job of saying, you know what, the running game is still alive and well. So here's our weekly conversation with Rob Staton, SeahawksDraftBlog.com, all brought to you by Superior Linen Service. Show as we broadcast from the Limbeck Lumber Studios, the PuckSports Studios, built by Limbeck Lumber. Mr. Staton joins us every single week as we talk Seahawks football, all brought to you by Superior Linen Service, which is committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get a free quote today at suplinen.com. Give them a call, 253-383-2636. Click on that QR code there on your screen. It's going to take you right to Superior Linen, and then you get all their fine deals there at suplinen.com. Also, you can watch us on YouTube and Twitter, and the PuckSports mobile app is out now. So if you don't want to watch our pretty faces anymore, you just want to listen to us in your car, walking around. The PuckSports mobile app is up in the App Store for Apple users right now. It will be available for the Android users soon on Google Play. Got to still work out some kinks there. But for you iPhone users, the PuckSports mobile app is now available. You can listen to the show as it airs every day live at 10 a.m. You can stream it there on your phone. All right, Mr. Rob Staton. It wasn't the prettiest game in the world, okay, against the Dolphins. Bad quarterback play, bad pants by Mike McDaniel. He looks like he's drugged out on ecstasy on the sideline, but a win is a win.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I have got the app, so if I can work out how to download it, then everybody else can as well. So there we go. Yeah, look, it was not a classic. It's a good win though. I think one of the things that I really wanted to see from that game was just a really comprehensive win. You're playing Skylar Thompson. We talked about this last week. The Seahawks should win. It doesn't have to be pretty, but they need to win the game. And to win it by 21 points in the end is exactly like if you'd have said it to anybody before the game, the Seahawks are going to win by 21 points, you would go, yeah, that's really good. Then you actually watch the game. You have two quarters where basically the refs take over. It's just one flag after another. There's no points scored. The Seahawks offense was stalling. They had some bad moments there. It kind of gives you that. You want more. When you're 17-3 up after the first quarter, you're thinking, right, okay, what's this going to be? Is it going to be 40 points to 0 or 40 points to 3 or whatever? And then when it doesn't happen, you can be tempted to sort of think a little bit negatively about it. I'm happy they just got the job done. They won the game, and they move on. What I will say, though, Puck, is I have this nagging feeling that eventually the Seahawks are going to play an opponent and it's not going to go well. That it's not just that they're going to lose, that it could be a bit of an eye-opener because there are still, especially with this offensive line, that are really concerning. So I think this game against Detroit is the perfect game to have next. Can they go there and be very competitive and put up a good fight in Detroit? Or could this be a bit of a game where you realize, okay, you're not playing Skylar Thompson, Jacoby Brissett and Bo Nix this week?
And I agree. I agree with all of it. And sometimes some fans get offended when you point that out. And it's like, well, they both things can be true. I think the team has played well. I think that it's static. They're off to a 3-0 start. This couldn't have gone any better for Mike McDonald and his new staff, especially with the teams in your division who are banged up. And now you've got 3 weeks into the season, a 2-game lead on these teams. And I don't think that's going to stay. I don't know how many people think that that's going to remain, but it is right now what you have. But they have been benefited by who they've played. The rookie quarterback, a journeyman quarterback, a backup quarterback who's not all that good, and then he gets knocked out and you're playing a third-string quarterback. And that's okay. They've taken advantage of that. In the past, when everyone's using the same company. In years past, when a Colt McCoy has come in, they've lost those games. And Colt McCoy and others have looked good. Mason Rudolph last year. And so you're right. There is room for improvement because this is a defense last week that gave up almost 190 yards on the ground to a one-dimensional football team. And so there's some stuff to clean up, but I guess the glass half full, right? Because you and I are both glass half full people, all right?
Of course.
Is that they're 3-0 and there's still lots for them to improve on.
Yeah, and I think if to take a glass half full perspective on it, it's really good to see Derek Hall playing the way that he is. He is somebody who did absolutely nothing as a rookie, and when you spend such a high pick on a pass rusher like that, you want to have a reason to have any kind of hope that pick's going to work out. And watching him last year, he looked, he was more LJ Collier than Bruce Irvin, let's say. And this year, he looks like a totally different player. He's playing with power. He seems to be playing within his skill set. I think it's quite interesting when Mike McDonald talks about you are what you are. Derek Hall is a power rusher. Use that to be your main trait rather than trying to be something you're not. And they seem to fit a role in for him that he's now got 3 sacks in 3 games. So has Boya Mafe. When you spend 2 high second-round picks, you have to really hope that those 2 guys are going to end up being a nice partnership off the edge. And they're doing all of this and producing as well as they are without Uchenna and Wosu rotating in. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I really hope that Leonard Williams is not going to miss any time with this rib injury. Ditto Byron Murphy with his hamstring, because the line is such a positive for the Seahawks. It will be so crushing if the depth is going to be tested, especially now when you're going to be playing the Detroit Lions. So that's definitely a positive. And then what I would say offensively as well, I wasn't that happy with the way that I didn't think they played smart offense for a couple of quarters yesterday, especially the way the offensive line played. But, seeing DK Metcalf get that catch over Kendall Fuller, that's exactly the kind of play that me and you talked about, the something that we want to see him make. It's the kind of play that the Mike Evans, the Julio Jones, people like that do make. He hasn't been making those kind of plays. So seeing that was probably the most exciting, most enjoyable play of the game for me, to see DK Metcalf making a catch like that.
Yeah, and I think that his continued play, what we've seen so far in the first 3 weeks of the season, it just seems like a more concentrated effort to get DK the ball, to make him more of a focal point of the offense. You see when they are given just an extra second of time to throw the football, Rob, but the offensive line can just give him another second. That double move in which he scores, the 70-yard touchdown, where you see a guy catch a football and then it looks like two defenders are right on him. And then his ability with his size to pull away like a Ferrari is just there's just not another wide receiver out there like him. And that's why you just got to force feed the ball to him.
He's unique. He's uniquely sized with that speed combination. He's an incredible player. He's the kind of player that when other teams draft that player at the end of round 2, they wonder what the hell was our GM doing, sleeping at the wheel when that guy was available. So for the Seahawks to trade up and go and get him, it's one of the best draft picks they've had in recent history. It's an incredible move. A lot of people criticize the Seahawks. Like, why didn't they draft Creed Humphrey? And it's a fair argument. Why didn't they draft him? But why didn't 30 other teams draft him as well to let the Chiefs get him? And this is the same with DK Metcalf. Why didn't other teams, when you think of some of the receivers that went ahead of DK Metcalf, it seems just totally ridiculous at this point that he lasted to the very end of round 2. So well done to the Seahawks for making that move. He is a terrific player. Look, Puck, he is showing everything that he needed to show right now to get a huge payday in the offseason. And I have to say, with the way that he's playing, the Seahawks would be mad not to secure him for the rest of the peak of his career.
Okay, so what do you make of this right now? We touched on it briefly here. They're 3-0. Stack wins right now because of what's happening in your division. How much credit defensively in these first 3 weeks do you give to them as a defensive unit? And then how much do you say of the credit pie, right? Do you like pie? I'm a big pie guy. I like pie over cake.
Who doesn't?
Okay, I'm just making sure. I don't know. Pie is better than cake. I think we can establish that here on the show. It has always been and will always be better than cake. All right.
Yeah, agreed.
So of the pie, of the credit pie.
Yeah.
God, now I want pie because now I'm thinking crust. I'm thinking apple. I'm thinking apple pie. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. I'm thinking pumpkin pie, pecan pie. Oh, Lord. How much of that pie do we want to credit the defense, but then there's got to be a slice of it. You tell me how big it is. But it's the first 3 opponents offensively have not been good.
So I think a decent slice of the pie is the fact that it's Nix, Brissett, and Skylar Thompson and Boyle. But then I think the rest of the pie, which is still, more or less most of the pie, is the defense. And I'm not suggesting that they will be able to replicate this necessarily against Jared Goff or Kyle Shanahan down the line and stuff like that. But for me, Puck, it's what are you seeing with your eyes? And what I'm seeing is more pressure than we've seen in a long time. It's players flying to the football. It's a hitting intensity. It's 2 or 3 defenders running to the ball carrier. So even if the first one doesn't finish the job, the next guy will. It just looks better. I'm watching Tariq Woolen, and increasingly, I just think he might be the best cornerback in the league right now. Mm. And to think that we're just a few months removed from laughing at the guy because he was grabbing his groin against the Arizona Cardinals and wondering if they should just kick him to the curb, to think that now he's practically irreplaceable for Seattle. He looks sensational. So when you factor, Jordan Love looks like a totally different player. Jenkins looks like a terrific addition. And when you add all these factors in, Dodson, the linebacker, you just roll off the names. It just looks better. So while it's definitely true that they've benefited from weak opponents, weak quarterbacks that they've faced, I feel that most of the pie is the defense because they just look so much better than they had done for a long time under Pete Carroll.
Yeah, it's just I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was Green. I think it was Green last night. It might have been I think it was Tim Hasselbeck on Monday talking about with Scott Van Pelt talking about on Sunday night talking about Mike McDonald and the pressure packages and just saying how it's so unique because he just shows you something totally different pre-snap. And then based on the personnel of the offense and based on the quarterback situation, just based on all of it, then there's this adjustment where you think it's coming from one side, then it comes from a different side. You think 6 are coming, but really he's not really sending anyone. He's only sending 4, maybe he's sending 1. The level of confusion, which, we see on the other side of the ball a lot of times, Rob, right? It's the offense trying to confuse the defense so much. And we've talked about this before, him trying to now confuse the offense of what to do is, I think so far so good during the first 3 weeks. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from the numbers back it up. I mean, they're putting up some phenomenal numbers. But to your point, it's going to get much harder here when they face, a much better team here in Detroit. Daniel Jones had a good game this week, but I still think it's Daniel Jones. They'll be tested a little bit better more there. And then I think the real test for them, and this is why it's good to get these weeks out of the way, will, of course, be with Kyle Shanahan and the Niners in a few weeks.
I just wonder, Puck, whether it's luck or judgment, whether the Seahawks appointing a defensive coach with this skill set, with this sort of approach to everything, is going to end up being an inspired move, because we're 3 weeks into the NFL now. It's not week 1 anymore. Like week 1 can often be a bit of a strange week. We've seen most teams play 3 games now, and even the Chiefs are not this well-oiled offensive machine. Defensive football for them has been crucial. We have Mel Kiper coming on ESPN and bemoaning the approach of using 2 safeties and suggesting it should be banned. I mean, like but it speaks to the fact that people are noticing that all of a sudden these high-octane offensive passing juggernauts that we're used to seeing in the NFL no longer, it hasn't been the case this season. And you look at the Steelers are 3-0 playing football from the 1980s, and the Seahawks are 3-0, playing with a desire to run the football. Yes, they've got explosive weapons, and Geno's played well, but it's defense. It's running the football, and you run through the teams that have done well so far, and there does seem to be a consistent theme. Running backs seem to be, having almost a renaissance. People are talking about the importance of running the ball again because of the 2 high safety approach, which is going to create opportunities in the running game. It just feels that right now, having that old school defensive background might actually be a good thing for some teams. And I think the Seahawks are benefiting from that. Maybe the NFL is just going through a trend change here, and 400-yard games and 5,000 passing yards, at least for the next couple of seasons, maybe it's not going to be a thing.
Okay, we say Renaissance. How do you pronounce it again?
Renaissance.
I think, again, I like the way you say it more. It's better. All right, it's better.
We need a French person on to tell us what the exact correct way of saying it is.
Yeah. Do you know anyone? Is there like a French president of the Seahawks football club? I mean,
well, I should know this because I studied French in college, and my mum was a French teacher, so I should probably know this. But my French is. I used to go to France every summer when I was a teenager to basically try and learn French. Yeah. But I've forgotten a little bit more every single year since then.
Going back to your point, are we resetting ourselves in the NFL? Maybe. I always laugh when it's just, because I think it's playing football that way, what you just described is for some is a cliche. And I think a lot of coaches always talk about, hey, we got to establish the run. I don't think the running back was ever going to go away. I don't think playing tough defense was ever going to go away. Every coach that coaches wants to run the football. And in as much as we want to, and I think this is a problem for some of these new age analytic guys that cover football. And I'm thinking of like one guy in particular that stands out, Bill Barnwell. And again, I'm not saying that he's talented and all that, but this desire to just get rid of the running back. And for somehow to be like, it's not important anymore. We just got to throw. And that was his whole argument, along with others, about why Russell Wilson needed to cook and Pete Carroll needed to go and all that. And that was years ago, and that's in the past. But running the football and playing defense will always be a recipe for success at any level of football. I don't care if you're playing. I've coached Pop Warner to high school, to college, to the pros. It just is. I mean, when you like that last drive on Sunday, Rob, when you go 98 yards and you dominate on the ground, that is backbreaking. You suck the soul and life out of the defense when you play that way. Much more so than if that was 98 yards and they were dinking and dunking passing. That ain't the same thing. When you line up and blow them off the ball and are picking up chunks of yards and you move down the field, demoralizing.
Well, you're speaking to somebody who was, often a figure of fun amongst an element of Seahawks Twitter about 6 years ago, because I dared to sort of stick up for the running back position and the value of the running game amidst this, wave, this tsunami of just pass every single down, let Russ cook and all of this stuff. And, Pete Carroll was often decried as being a has-been almost because of his constant chatter about the running game at the Dallas playoff games was sort of like case number one for why this is old-fashioned and why you're not allowed to do that. And I've never really believed that, analytics has clearly got a point in the game. It just felt to me like, I don't know about you, Puck, but I get a bit bored of seeing like these endless statistics that, these graphs that people use all the time, that, this different analytical thing will say this and this other one will say that. Often I think it kind of like, what is the point you're trying to make? You can find a statistic to sort of back it up one way or another. And I do think there's a lot of that going on. What I thought was really interesting was listening to Mike McDonald saying that, the run game soft. What did he say in the locker room?
Yeah. What did he say in the locker room? I loved it because I never heard that phrase before. The like softening of the game or something.
Softening of the opponent. Like it just, there is something to be said. Like I've never played high-end American football. I mean, why would I? I'm from Rotherham. So, but a lot of the analytics guys haven't either. And it just stands to reason that if you have to defend a really tough physical running game, you are going to be tired out by the end of that game, that it is going to have a physically draining aspect on you. And maybe there's not a way to put that onto a spreadsheet to sort of show what the impact is. And therefore, maybe it's quite easy for certain people to diminish. But it's always been the case for me that if you are able to run the ball with some success, and I always wondered why Seahawks fans were amongst the most vocal with this, when we'd all lived through the Marshawn Lynch era. If there was never a greater example of somebody who could take the will of an opponent through blunt force running straight at you. And we have had the quintessential power back that for me should be a first ballot Hall of Famer just because of the impact that he had on the game, both culturally and in terms of the style of running.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob. I jumped on you there because because of those people in that sports media world were force feeding fans that tell them, and you've got to throw. That's all. The only way you can win is throwing the ball. It's not. It's just not the way.
Well, look at the last couple of weeks. Like if the Eagles had run the ball on third down against the Falcons, they'd probably be 3-0 right now. Yeah. If you look at the Cowboys yesterday with their mounting their comeback, they're being really aggressive, going for two very early because the analytics will say go for two straight away. If they kick 2 extra points at the end, they would have had a great chance to go for 2 right on their last touchdown to tie the game. Instead, they need to kick and go for try and get the ball back for a field goal. I think there's a lot of overthinking going on in the NFL at the moment. And I think it ties itself in knots sometimes. Like I say, I'm not somebody who doesn't believe in analytics. It definitely has a place within football. But I don't know if it's just because we all saw that it had a major impact in baseball because of the A's. And like ever since then, there has been this absolutely desperate desire to try and find the NFL's version of that. And we see it with English football over here with the soccer. You know, there's a growing army of people on social media who are trying to find ways to sort of really emphasize analytics. And like I say, I'm not a non-believer in analytics, but I just think maybe it's become a bit too much, especially within the media.
Well, of course, it's been too much. It always is. There's just this idea that in football now that you can just win without throwing the football. You can throw it all around, the place nonstop, and that's how you win. I mean, the teams that have long sustained success at any level of football have got the ability to run it and run it consistently. That's why it's going to be a hell of a challenge, I think, coming up this week. You're taking on a team that is committed to running the football and wants to run it down your throat and wants to out physical you. And that can be demoralizing to get beat up. I can't wait to see how this defense reacts to it, because it's, and when a team did that to them already this year, they failed against New England. Now they won the game. So I should backtrack and say that they failed. They failed to stop the running game. Dan Campbell and Detroit are looking at that tape from New England going, if they can do that, and we've got a better passing game, we've got a better quarterback, we'll be able to take advantage of some of their miscues. So I'm fascinated to see, how they respond.
Yeah, well, they've got a better offensive line, Detroit. So far better than New England. So they will fancy their chances of running the ball. They're going to have to be ready for that, Seattle. The good thing is that when the Ravens played Detroit last season, they absolutely destroyed them. Like it was a total blowout. So that gives you some confidence that Mike Macdonald has got a plan that can handle this particular offensive scheme. Obviously, the Seahawks have gone there the last 2 years and have handled the business. And look, the good news is that Detroit's cornerbacks, their secondary is struggling terribly. Like it's really bad. Their cornerbacks are really struggling. And Geno Smith has played probably two of his best games. It's not probably. Right. He has played two of his best games in Detroit as the Seahawks starter in the last 2 years. On top of that, they've lost their second best pass rusher this week. Sam Laporta is day-to-day with an ankle injury. He was, I think, carted off the field yesterday, so he's got to be a down for this game too. We saw what Hunter Henry did against Seattle, so not having Sam Laporta would be a big thing for Detroit. But look, it's a great gauge. Like it felt like it was a gauge yesterday for Arizona to host Detroit, and they didn't get the job done. They only scored 13 points, and they lost that game, and now they're 1-2. I still think there's a lot of people who are very skeptical in the national media and who don't follow the Seahawks as to how good are this Seahawks team. Like they've beaten 3 teams you'd expect them to beat. They're 3-0, but they need a big win. And if they to go to Detroit and win that game, if they're 4-0, by next Tuesday, then the kind of reaction pod that we would do for that Puck, well, you'd be struggling not to get too carried away, especially with the Giants.
I want to get carried away. I like getting carried away because if they go in and beat Detroit next week, then there's, you just got a feeling they got, they're going to be favored against the Giants. They go to 5-0, and then they're 5-0, and even if they're 4-1. So regardless, they're 4-1, 5-0, and hosting San Francisco, a place is gonna be electric. It's gonna be a zoo on prime time. They're wearing the throwbacks, right? Yeah, I believe they are
against the Niners. Yes.
Yeah, that's just America, and that's freedom, and that's fun. Wearing those things because that's going to be beautiful on prime time. Al Michaels is going to be all over. He won't be able to contain himself. It's just gonna be great, and then that's when we're gonna see, how much. Just you're gonna be able to see Mike Macdonald trying to match wits with Kyle Shanahan, and I know they did it last year and all that, but just the first time is him being the head coach, and I think the other thing, I was getting kind of lost there, a little tangent. The other thing that just I loved about the game on Sunday was, and I don't understand where this narrative has come from, but there's a lot of people that are down on Zach Charbonnet for some reason. And I don't really understand why. And I don't think I have never heard anyone claim that Zach Charbonnet is as good as Ken Walker. I've never said that. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. I like Zach Charbonnet. I do know that Ken Walker is better than him, and he is the lead running back. But this like weird obsession in this town of like bashing Zach Charbonnet is odd to me. He's a good running back. He's a good backup running back. How many other teams would like a Zach Charbonnet right now to be their running back? I don't know. Dallas would. They'd take him. So
I think he's better than that, Puck. You know, I'm maybe a little bit biased because I can remember watching Zach Charbonnet in his penultimate year at UCLA, and spending the whole season talking about how he was Seahawks running back. Like this is the guy. Had a high grade on him, second round grade on him. Throughout that season, was stunned that he didn't declare because he'd already sort of transferred from Michigan and had to wait, and then start at UCLA. Come back again, was superb again for UCLA, was talking him up all the time. I thought it was that's the range he should have gone in the draft where Seattle took him. And then you watch him play, and I think the New England game is just influencing people too much in a game where New England just sold out to stop the run. You know, they'd watch what happened the week before. They'd watch Seattle's pass protection be utterly useless against the Broncos and thought, we are going to fancy our chances to have the same kind of impact as a non-elite Broncos defense, and we will just shut down the running game. So they sold out to stop Zach Charbonnet, and Geno Smith won Seattle the game. So they picked their poison, and Geno delivered. That's just what it was. When you watch this game yesterday, Zach Charbonnet is still not getting much help from the offensive line, by the way, and we should probably spend 5 minutes talking about the offensive line. But Zach Charbonnet, when it was needed for him to sort of finish that game, he did. He is not a perimeter runner like Ken Walker, but he showed in this game, in his second touchdown, that he can still do it, and he can get the tough yards, and he is perfectly sized. And I think the fact that, you know, Seattle did not do a good job running the ball last year, and then the fact that he had a tough game against New England is perhaps influencing people here. I think Zach Charbonnet can be a starting running back in this league, and Seattle have got, you know, an embarrassment of riches at that position. And it is great that they can rely on him when Ken Walker's not there. And if you can get them both back, I think that could be a real position of strength for a team that says it wants to run the ball as much as it does.
Yeah, that's I've always viewed it as like a 1 and then, you know, a 1B. I mean, I just, you know, I've never been caught up on Walker got hurt. Well, don't worry, we got Zach Charbonnet, we fill in, and he'll be even better. I just, you know, it's just weird. I was happy for him because, like you, I watched a lot of UCLA games, and he was just a stud there with the Bruins. The offensive line, I thought they played better, but there still was issues. Again, the bar is low. So when I say they played better, because the bar was really low, I thought they played better at times, but they still have an Anthony Bradford problem. I was stunned. And now I'm scared because Christian Haynes just must be terrible in practice. He didn't get a snap in the game. And that's a red flag to me, and has to be a red flag to a lot of people.
Okay, I've got a theory on this. I think they have decided that the best, maybe the only way to improve on the offensive line is chemistry. That they think chopping and changing the line all of the time will have a detrimental effect. That you will just end up resetting everything, resetting the time clock again, and if Christian Haynes comes in, he would need probably a month to get up to speed as well. So I think they've decided that they need Tomlinson, Williams, and Bradford to build a relationship, presumably with Forsyth, who's going to be starting for as long as he can, and Cross, and that they need 5 guys, and that chemistry is the key to everything here. Because Bradford's not playing well at all. Like the penalties, the whiffs, you know, everything about it, it's just not working. So I get it. I understand that there may be a possibility that Christian Haynes is so far behind, but they were rotating him in and then they didn't rotate him in. So I think they've come to the conclusion that they're just going to roll with this line and hope that it gets better. Now, that doesn't mean that they have an endless leash. It doesn't mean that Anthony Bradford's going to be able to do this again next week and come out unscathed. You know, they might come to a point where they go, look, we can't keep doing this every week. Like, we've got to make a change. We've got to try and find something. That may well be coming down the line. But I think right now, they just think chemistry is the key, and that's why they're going to stick with these guys. But Bradford's got to be better. Everyone's got to be better. You know, Charles Cross has had a good start to the season, but even he was getting beat off the edge in this game. So, the league's got an O-line problem. The Seahawks have got an O-line problem. It's, I'm spending a lot of my time at the minute watching offensive linemen in the draft, expecting that they're going to have to do something next year. And they probably are. But until then, they've got to find fixes. And the only way to do that probably is going to be more experience playing together and some clever scheming, which I don't think they did yesterday. I wasn't really that keen on the way that they schemed around some of their issues yesterday. They've got to be better than that. If they're getting a problem with pass pro or with the run game, they've got to find a way to scheme around those issues.
There it is. That's the Rob Staton Show. It's brought to you by Superior Linen Service, committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Give them a call, 253-383-2636. Get a free quote today at suplinen.com. Click on that QR code. It's going to take you right there to suplinen.com. You can check out Rob's work at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Video content, check out the YouTube channel. Rob Staton Football does live shows all the time, post-game shows. Shows during the week. You can also follow him on Twitter at Rob Staton. In case you missed this, you want to catch up on the very latest episodes with Rob, check them out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Also, please download the PuckSports mobile app. You can now listen to the show live, on the move, on the go, right from your phone. And, of course, all content up at PuckSports.com. Rob, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Puck. Niners 1-2.
Thank you to Rob. Again, we caught up with him earlier. In fact, yesterday afternoon, getting his thoughts there on all things Seahawks and the very latest. And I just love the discussion about the running backs. I mean, I just think that, and I got some stats on it to back it up. It's just not a lost art form to run the football, and it never has been. And it's always been this idea like, oh, no one's going to run the football anymore. But it's just simply not the case. Real quick, before we get to John Canzano, I understand on the app that there are some issues like the limit being exceeded. We're working on it. My guy Jacob's working on it. That's not, it's just an issue with how we take the stream in from YouTube. So we're trying to work a fix around that. So I know if you're trying to use it, and I know it's working for some, but for some it's not working. We will get it fixed as soon as we can. Again, I knew it wasn't going to go smoothly right off the bat, but that's okay. You know what? When you're kind of pushing it back against big corporate America like YouTube, you get those things. All right. We want to talk a little college football here with John Canzano, who, again, there's just so many storylines going on right now in college football, which is just, God, ridiculous. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. The amount of storylines that are happening in college football. I leave the glasses on. John Canzano joins us right. No
Raiders.
Glasses.
Raiders, no glasses.
You know what? In the last year, I've had to use those, and it's, you know what? It hurts.
I know.
It really hurts.
My issue is I'm on the computer all day long, and if I don't use them, forget it. I can't
see.
I'm done.
Yeah. Here he is, John Canzano. Let me get all the stuff out of the way, and then we're going to jump right into it. There's so much news going on, and he's very busy, and he's got to get going on doing his real work, not just joining me. His weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, best selection of pizza and local Northwest craft beers. Visit Zeke'sPizza.com. You can, of course, follow John, and I would, if you're not following him, follow him right now on Twitter at John Canzano BFT. All of his work up at johncanzano.com, including the very latest where we sit right now at the Pac-12 of the Mountain West. And, of course, you can listen to his radio show, The Bald Faced Truth, down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. All right, what's the latest? What do we got? What's going on?
Well, as it stands, the Pac-12 is sitting as a 7-member conference that has added Utah State as the latest official addition. UNLV is sitting in limbo, evaluating its options as the rest of the Mountain West Conference probably is as well. That conference sitting with 7 members and in limbo itself. But the latest news just a few minutes ago, Puck, is that the Pac-12 is taking the Mountain West Conference to court. They have filed a complaint in the Northern District of California, alleging that the poaching penalties that were part of the scheduling agreement between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 are not enforceable. They're asking a judge to throw those out, and they are arguing that it's an antitrust violation. And so I think that I think it's a really smart legal strategy by the Pac-12. Who knows? The potential outcome here could be the Mountain West simply negotiating a more favorable, financial term for the Pac-12. But right now, I think the Pac-12 is arguing that, those penalties are designed to create a competitive imbalance and to put the Pac-12 at a disadvantage and are a violation of antitrust. And they're also going to argue, Puck, that the scheduling agreement with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West will end at the end of this football season. The poaching penalties in that contract, section 7-01, if you want to climb down that rabbit hole, they extend for 2 years beyond the contract. And I talked with Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West Conference commissioner, in San Diego a couple weeks ago, walking by her in Snapdragon Stadium, and I stopped her and I said, "Hey, help me with the poaching penalties." I said, "Do they end, or because the scheduling agreement is not going to extend?" And she said, no, they extend 2 years beyond this. That's what is at stake here. It's about $10 million per school. So as the Pac-12 starts to, take 4 originally, now 5, and exploring the 6th school, UNLV, you're looking at 50, 60, $70 million. Every time you take a school, it's $10 million more.
Mm. Okay, so you don't think today we're not, until they resolve this, we're not going to have any update on UNLV or Air Force?
I think this UNLV thing, interestingly, is tied directly to all of this, and I'm kind of watching the dominoes fall. Like, you saw what happened yesterday, and I was told yesterday morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, that the Pac-12 had this cascading order of offers. That's how it was put to me. A cascading order of offers on the board that started with Memphis, Tulane, and the University of South Florida. So, the Pac-12 looked at that and said, "Hey, if they accept our terms, great. We take those 3 schools, you're done." If they don't accept the terms, then the Pac-12's plan was to pivot immediately to UNLV and Utah State. The Gloria Navarez and the Mountain West Conference did a smart thing, and they, tried best they could to hold those schools together. So they got everybody to kind of sign an agreement. Where does this sound familiar? And kind of look at each other and say, "Hey, we're in solidarity," until we're not. But that agreement, as I understand it, required that 8 members were part of the conference. And right now she's only got 7. Utah State is signed and sealed by the Pac-12, as are those 4 other schools. And so you're looking at a 7-member conference looking to add UNLV. And what the Mountain West is promising UNLV and Air Force and the other members is it's promising them, some bonuses for retention. And so they're basing that on the poaching penalties and the withdrawal fees that they expect to receive from the members who are leaving the conference. And so, I think there's some confusion right now in that space. Do they have that money? Or does the Pac-12 have that money potentially? If those poaching penalties are not enforceable, it gives the Pac-12 $40 or $50 million extra to go out and say, "Hey, we'll cover more of your exit fees if you're Memphis or Tulane. Hey, UNLV, we can give you a little more up front, and in addition to the media rights deal that we're planning to negotiate." So if I'm UNLV right now, I'm going to sit tight for a bit. I'm going to see what happens. Air Force may be talking further with the American. They make a lot of sense in the American alongside Army and Navy. But Mountain West is in a little trouble here. Pac-12 is using a legal maneuver today to try to squeeze and, leverage itself into a better situation.
Why didn't they initially just go after UNLV?
I think part of it was the element of surprise, and part of it may have been a little bit of a strategic mistake. But, think about this. The 4 schools that left, it was airtight. That was circle of trust, right? Nobody knew what they were doing. Everybody kind of knew that they were unhappy, and the Pac-12 was talking to those schools. In fact, Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West commissioner, told me that she knew, it was 4 days before they left that I spoke with her. She knew that they were in contact with their schools, but I don't think she thought it was imminent. And all of a sudden on that Tuesday and that Wednesday, they were like, "Okay, we're leaving." But they had this element of surprise that the Mountain West could not react to. Very much different than, when the Pac-12 went after Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, Tim Pernetti, the American commissioner, had all this time to plan and fly to Memphis and talk to his members and come up with a plan that made sense to them. They really blindsided the Mountain West by taking those 4 members in the cover of night. And I think taking UNLV in that first bite ran the risk of, you had to alert Nevada because the Board of Regents was going to have to approve it. So Nevada would have known about it. Gloria's going to find out about it. The Mountain West attorneys are going to be all over it. And maybe they moved to block it. So I think that first move, Puck, they felt they needed to go swift. They needed to go under a cloak of, secrecy. And, now it looks like a misfire that they didn't get UNLV, but getting Utah State into the fold sort of accomplishes the same thing now. And you have destabilized the Mountain West into a position where, if I'm UNLV, as long as the financials make sense to me, the Pac-12 looks better to me.
Clarify that whole UNLV Nevada thing, right?
Yeah.
There seems to be some confusion about that. When you and I talked last week, you were like, hey, they're kind of tied together with the state and what they need to approve on. And then that was, I don't know if not shot down, but yeah. No, I think someone said, well, no, that's not our understanding. So is it similar to how it was the state of California treated Cal and UCLA?
No, not quite like the Board of Regents and the UC system. They're much more, that's one system, right? And they're all about sort of serving the greater good of all the members. The issue in Nevada, and I stand by this, it's complex because you have one Board of Regents in that state that governs both schools. Oregon, the state of Oregon used to have that as well. They governed all the schools. And so, when a school says, I'm leaving, like Oregon, I'd like to leave for the Big Ten Conference, in order to get those trustees to vote for it, they would have to look over and say, gosh, is this in the best interest of Oregon State? We need to talk this through. It would be on a board meeting agenda. It would be discussed. Now, ultimately, they may say, hey, it's better for Oregon to be in the Big Ten, but, we're not beholden to that. But, as it broke down in Oregon, now the system now has a board of trustees for each university. In the state of Nevada, the same board governs Nevada and UNLV. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying, I don't think that they would force them to stay together. There's precedent for this. UNLV left the WAC, for example, and left to go to the WAC in 1994, and Nevada got left behind in the Big West. I mean, there's precedent for them splitting. And I think they would be allowed to split. So I'm not arguing with that. But there's no way you would have kept this quiet from Nevada if you approach the Board of Regents and you say, UNLV would like to leave. That board's going to put it on an agenda meeting. It's going to hear testimony from Nevada about how this would impact Nevada. They're going to do their diligence, and you lose sort of the element of surprise. So I think the strategy there, while you may second guess it, and I can second guess it afterwards, I get what they were thinking when they said we were only going to take 4 in this bite.
John, again, John Canzano with us, of course, if you don't recognize the voice, and then just the beautiful face, John Canzano, BFT there on Twitter, johncanzano.com, all brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Okay, so you hinted at it a little bit. Do you think, and I wondered this earlier, they were so secretive about San Diego State and Boise State and Colorado State. I mean, it caught everybody off guard. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to Tulane and Memphis, and it was like out in the open, like everybody knew they were courting them. Is there a chance that could have been a plan maybe on the behalf of the Pac-12, that it was orchestrated in a way?
I kind of feel like there was a little bit of strategy in that, because it made no sense. It made no sense that, you don't want to offer a job to somebody and have them turn you down publicly. You don't want to offer membership and have it get turned down. And the offer that the Pac-12 made to the American, it wasn't a no-brainer offer. And so I look at all of the rest of the expansion moves, Puck, that were made across college athletics in the last 2 years. All this realignment expansion stuff, it's always a no-brainer financially. Like, you can talk about the loss of tradition, you can talk about the geography, but USC and UCLA saw $70 million in distribution. They compared it to the 30 that they might get, or 40 they might get in the Pac-12, and they went, this is a no-brainer from a financial standpoint, we're going. the offer that the Pac-12 made to those AAC schools, it wasn't a no-brainer. And it was so publicly done and with no element of surprise that it left me kind of thinking, like, what was the strategy here? Well, and I'll just throw a conspiracy theory out there that I've heard and I've talked with people about. Is it possible that the Pac-12, liked Tulane and Memphis and South Florida, but didn't love the idea of the travel? Because as I talked with the Pac-12, they said, hey, look, from a financial standpoint, of course, these schools bring, media value relative to other G5 schools. They're good additions in football. You get some new markets, but there was a huge travel expense. And we're not talking about a media rights deal that would be a $50 or $70 million deal. We're talking 12, 15 million, best case scenario. I don't know. I'm not a media consultant, but those are the numbers that are out there. So when you start talking about several $1 million a year from the westward schools going east and the eastward schools going west, you're starting to eat into your bottom line in a way that doesn't make sense. And so I was not surprised to see that the Pac-12's offer to these schools was not like, hey, we're going to pick up the whole $25 million exit fee. It was more of a, I heard a report about 2.5 million. It's just not a no-brainer. And so I kind of wonder if the Pac-12 strategy here was to force the American into a position where, it had to kind of go all in on Memphis and Tulane and South Florida and maybe even UTSA as a defensive play, offer greater revenue sharing, offer, retention bonuses if they did that, but kind of force the hand of Tim Pernetti to kind of say, hey, I'm going to go all in with everything I've got here. And I'm just spitballing here, but is it possible that they didn't want to compete against the American for UNLV and maybe Air Force or Utah State? And so they went that route first on Monday morning, and then their cascading order of offers pivots to other schools. And they know now the Americans feeling like, okay, we retained our members. We don't really need to do much more. Now you're not in competition with those schools. I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of wondering what the Pac-12 strategy was, because it was so out there from a PR standpoint. You look like you asked somebody to the dance and you didn't get, they didn't accept it. Looks bad. And your offer wasn't a no-brainer offer. So I'm just kind of left thinking, like, was there an ulterior motive here by the Pac-12? Is there some strategy in getting Tim Pernetti and the American to kind of play defense right out of the gates, and then you go after who you really want? I don't know, because I was told that Utah State, when you remove the travel expenses from a Memphis, that the dollars between Utah State and Memphis were comparable in the bottom line, right? They don't bring as much media value. They're not as great a football program, even though they got 3 10-win seasons in the last 11 years. They add something, but when you factor in the travel expenses, all of a sudden they go, the bottom line is about the same. I don't know. Try that on and see how it suits you.
Yeah, it something didn't smell right about it, but
Right.
maybe it's nothing, and maybe this is what they wanted to do, and we're maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
But they
I don't
look a
know.
little bumbling, right? Like my wife walked in,
Yeah.
I was writing the column, and she walked in and she goes, why would they publicly pursue them unless they knew they had them? And why does she know that? Like, why does everybody know they went after him? That shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah, and the Pac-12, they use a company called, is it Navigate?
Navigate, yeah.
For those who
company.
Okay,
Big time.
for those who don't know, because when they read your stuff and they read that you reference Navigate, that's helping out the Pac-12, maybe it's confusing to some. Just tell everyone what Navigate does. What business are they in?
They're in the consulting world, but their specialty is in valuation, data analysis. They really do help schools individually as they try to make these decisions, try to figure out, like, is this a good move? University of Oregon hired Navigate in trying to figure out, should they go to the Big Ten? Also, hey, by the way, Navigate can back channel in a way that, like, the athletic director and the university president can't when you are, under a grant of rights. And so Navigate will have those conversations with various entities, talk to the Big Ten, talk to Oregon, give Oregon some numbers. What does moving to the Big Ten conference mean for your brand? How much more revenue outside of media rights could you expect to, how is this good for you in all these ways? And it really does a great job of kind of drilling down and quantifying this. They've been retained by Gonzaga as well. They've been on retainer from Gonzaga for I think more than a year. They're not cheap. It could, this is a company that's going to charge you maybe several $100,000 to do this kind of analysis and have those conversations, but their fingerprints are on some of the moves you've seen in expansion and realignment. So they are definitely, the ones at the board. When I talk about that cascading order of offers, they're at the front of the room, sort of drawing up that board, deciding here is the order of operations as we make offers. Here's the strategy and what you want to go after. Certainly this legal maneuver that the Pac-12 pulled today, Navigate is going to be advising them on that. And, I think, yesterday as Utah State was brought into the fold, that was a Navigate move. They look at, Utah State and they saw them as a sneaky addition. You looked at the revenue that they've generated. They were 5th in the Mountain West in TV ratings after, the other 4 schools the Pac-12 already took. And so they made sense. And so, for you and I, we might go, oh, Utah State, we don't see it, but Navigate does. And Navigate sees the value of basketball as well. They've been talking, I think, with a variety of conferences like the Big 12 and others, in the last year about how basketball is undervalued. And so the Pac-12 bringing them into the fold, it's like, you're bringing, your strategist in there. Navigate probably won't do the media rights deal. That's not where their expertise is, but they would probably be involved in hiring whatever company that the Pac-12 does go with. And I am told that they have had conversations with some consultants.
Okay, so it's a perfect way to now pivot to basketball a little bit. There's the stories out there, reports out there about Gonzaga. We've talked about this before about the conference's interest in Gonzaga. Obviously, it makes perfect sense. It's in your footprint. They're an unbelievable brand. If you add them, now you really are building up quite the basketball conference. Where do we stand with the flirtation and the dance between the Pac-12 and Gonzaga?
Yeah, I mean, they've had ongoing conversations with Gonzaga, and those really have intensified in the last couple of weeks, but nothing is done. I happened to be on the phone with one of the two parties, Pac-12 and Gonzaga, yesterday when that tweet goes out saying the deal's done, full share, despite football. And I can tell you that, directly involved party on the other end of the phone was like, what? Like that? No, like, yeah, of course it may happen. I think the Pac-12 would love to have Gonzaga. I think they're building a basketball conference that looks like you could make an argument to be the first or second best conference in the country. Like if you get the right teams and you add Gonzaga to it, like that could be a really good basketball conference. But, this is a football first conversation with expansion and realignment. It's 80 to 85% of every media rights dollar has to do with football. The football decisions are going to get made first. I think Gonzaga is having those conversations. I think they may be interested in a short-term grant of rights. That's another thing we haven't talked about, Puck. Pac-12 is only asking the new members to sign a 5-year grant of rights. There's a little bit of honesty in that, right? Like, hey, we're not here for a long time. We're just here for a good time. We're going to position ourselves to be, players in the next round, and we're going to try to better ourselves and get in position for whatever happens next. But we're not holding you here forever. The buyouts are not going to be like, exorbitant, the poaching penalties, all that stuff. I think the Pac-12 just wants to get a bunch of schools that really want to be like Power 4 schools in the room and see what those schools can do when they're put together. And so Gonzaga fits that. Gonzaga is looking for that next thing. Now, the question becomes, if they add Gonzaga, is it along with St. Mary's? Is it along with Grand Canyon? Is it along with someone else who may be unhappy in another conference? That's all to be determined.
But it's out there with St. Mary's that St. Mary's would be willing to jump ship from the WCC?
I haven't heard that directly, but I have heard, as I talked with Pac-12 sources, it keeps getting brought up in conjunction with someone else. And now I wondered if it's Grand Canyon, because I think in a lot of ways getting into Phoenix with Grand Canyon University, they are not they're not allergic to risk.
Yeah.
But I think if you just take Gonzaga, that's enough. Like I talked to Wayne Tinkle, the Oregon State men's basketball coach at the football game last week, and I said, hey, what do you think of this conference with San Diego State, Colorado State, Boise State, potential for Gonzaga? And he's like, that's a damn good conference.
It's a great that's a great basketball conference. Like a great basketball conference.
And tie it together, Puck, because Navigate, one of their initiatives in the last 18 months has been, they are telling media companies basketball is undervalued.
Yeah.
They're telling conferences basketball is undervalued. It just makes sense to me. And you and I talked about this even like 2 weeks ago. Makes sense to me that Gonzaga as a client of Navigate, the Pac-12 as a client of Navigate. Yes, you can marry these things together, but let's not just throw it out as a done deal. That didn't help anybody yesterday. And I thought it was interesting that within seconds it was refuted. Like, it was not a difficult report to refute. And I just wonder why, people who were perpetuating it didn't pick up the phone and call one of the two entities. Like, very easy to kind of knock that down.
Okay, so who does the Big 12 use?
The Big 12 uses Endeavor,
and they're competitors with Navigate.
And Endeavor also works for the Mountain West.
This is great. God, I love this stuff. This is awesome.
There's a little Succession, a little Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But Endeavor wants to do it all. It wants to be the one-stop shop. It wants to negotiate media rights. That's probably where their specialty is. They're more in entertainment, but they certainly are involved in consulting and advising. You also have Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner. Look, he got out over his skis a little bit with the UConn thing. Remember this. He's talked with Gonzaga, really aggressively about adding UConn from a basketball standpoint. And his president slapped his hand and said, hey, we're just digesting the football thing. Like, what are you doing? And you saw that very quietly go away as football season started. No, UConn's not coming. It's on the back burner all of a sudden. So I just kind of wondered yesterday when I saw that tweet. I just said, like, okay, there were a couple things that jumped out. One was, it noted that Gonzaga was basketball only edition, and then it mentioned full share. And I just thought that was a lot to put out there. Yeah. And it didn't help the Pac-12, and it kind of muddies the waters a little bit. I don't know. I'm just the conspiracy theorist in me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I immediately thought of Endeavor.
Of course.
Thought, are they planting something, or is this just, everybody, once in a while makes an honest mistake? I don't know.
They want it out there because they want it out there so the other schools can see that the basketball school would get a full share and you football people wouldn't. Yeah. That's why.
I mean, it definitely affects an impact. It does not help.
No.
And it was interesting being on the phone with one of the two entities involved in that report and hearing the reaction in real time. It was just like, basically we're going to have to refute this. Yeah. And within seconds, I mean, you saw a cascade of, reporters who were fact checking, who were being told, no, not true. It may happen, the sides are talking. It makes sense.
Sure.
I don't think the Big 12 or the Mountain West would want it to happen, but the Pac-12, I think, would covet Gonzaga.
You want to talk some football?
Sure.
A few minutes of football. You are a voter for the Heisman Trophy, right?
Yeah.
Where do you have Mateer right now?
Yeah, look, I think of that award as MVP.
Okay.
All right. It's an MVP award. It should be an MVP award, most outstanding player. But I also think about the value you have for your team. It's why Michael Penix Jr., in my book, belonged on the ballot 2 years ago, at the top of the ballot for me last year. I did not have Jaden Daniels at number one. LSU fans hate me for it, but I don't think Jaden Daniels would have started at Washington.
Hey, I saw your buddy take a shot at you last night on Twitter.
I still don't think it, whatever. It's an opinion. Who cares? But John Mateer, for me, I mean, look, is he the best passer in America? No. Is he the best running quarterback in America? No. But that guy's a baller. And that guy does the combination and what he means to his team. If Washington State continues to win, if they can be an at-large team or a candidate late in this year for the college football playoff, they have to get an at-large berth. They're not eligible for anything else. If they're sitting there at 12-0 at the end of the season, how do you not consider John Mateer? How do you not have him on your ballot? I mean, he's carrying that team. He means more to that team in ways that, can be quantified and not quantified, and loved after the game. They beat San Jose State. And by the way, San Jose State, fearless. Can we just say that for a second? Fearless.
Great football team.
After the game, what is Mateer doing? He's saying, I missed some guys, and, it was my teammates, and, I'm playing on a great team. And I was just like, we need more of that.
That was a wild game. I've never seen a game up and down. You think you won. You think you're going to dominate, right? You think you're going to, you're going to go up by 18 at one point, and then they come back. You're down by 2 scores. You rally late. You've got missed field goal, missed extra point. I mean, it was, Dean Janikowski, who had missed an extra point. Dean Janikowski, who has not been good since going back to last year, 3 of 9, I believe. Most people, including myself, had zero confidence he's going to nail a 52-yarder. And then he lines it up and he drills it. It's probably good from 60. It was a wild game.
I saw Ryan Leaf the following day because he was on the CW broadcast of Oregon State's game the following day. And, I said to him, what'd you think of that game? Because the CW got its, indoctrination to Pac-12 after dark in that game. Like, it was like, welcome to the family for the CW. They had to love that game, Puck. Like, I know you were, you probably got an ulcer, but the television station got a great game. San Jose State was a great endorsement of them as a program. But, Ryan Leaf didn't enjoy it as much as I did because I was sort of enjoying it as the theater of football. What a great game. And his eyes were so big as he was kind of talking about like the end of that game and the agony he was going through, I think, as a Washington State alum, wanting his team just to run the football there at the end instead of throw it in the overtime.
Well, that was a terrible play.
But credit, good teams find a way.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to be better against Boise State. I think they have to be undefeated. I don't think you want to leave your fate in the hands of a CFP committee that, will be influenced by ESPN and Fox and the shoulder programming shows that will say, they're not a great team. They don't play in a great conference, all that nonsense. But I think it really does line up well for Washington State. They're in a position to matter, and that's all you could have dreamed for if you're a Cougar fan last season.
I don't understand. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm gonna do it a little bit. I'm gonna play the audio with "Hey, what the puck" at the end. But I don't understand the Joel Klatt taking a shot at the conference. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you take a shot at it to basically dismiss it. It makes no sense to me. And what I don't understand about Joel Klatt is this. He's a good broadcaster. I enjoy listening to him do a game. You didn't come from some college football hotbed. It's Colorado, who was the worst team in the conference, the absolute worst team. And I think his opinion gets so discredited when he slobbers all over Dion in Colorado, talking about how much he's changed the fortunes of the school. He hasn't done anything. The 2 years before Dion, they were 4-8. Their record last year, they were 4-8. They're not a good football team. They beat a bad Baylor team, and they'll get exposed here later in the season. But I just don't get it from Joel Klatt. I mean,
well, who's he work for? Where is he saying this stuff? Is it on Fox?
Yeah, I mean,
Look, Fox and ESPN, like it or not, Fox and ESPN they're in business with the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC and the ACC. They're in business with these conferences. They have a vested interest in those teams being in the playoff. I can tell you right now that the SEC, Big 10, ACC, and Big 12 are very worried about where those at-large berths are going to go. They know that the Pac-12 has a potential candidate in Washington State. At this point of the season, 4 weeks in, a month into the season, the Pac-12's got a candidate. They do not want to give away one of those berths. You can bet that, there's some messaging going on, whether it's overt or just subtle. There's messaging going on saying, hey, that team would be the 4th or 5th best team in our conference, all that nonsense that gets put out there. But the truth is, like, Boise State took Oregon to the mattresses, in a great game at Autzen Stadium. You beat Boise at Boise. That's a quality win. That's a better win than I think, most of these, conferences can post. To Big 12 ACC, certainly. It's the same as going to Utah and winning. All right. I mean, it's that quality of win against that quality and that brand of program. But you're going to get this from the shoulder programming at ESPN and Fox. And it's one of the advantages when you do a media rights deal with these companies. You get the glow of that shoulder programming. And, don't mistake that as the Pac-12 goes to market here in the next month or two after they figure out who's in the conference, don't mistake the value of having ESPN pounding the drum for you, knowing that ESPN and Fox want their teams and their products in the playoff race, and they want them ranked, and they want to be able to promote late in the year. Hey, look at our team playing for a playoff spot. The CW has Washington State and Oregon State, and the CW will be doing that as well. But it's easy to see once you understand the motivations that are involved in that stuff. And I can tell you that, I've been in on those production meetings at Fox and other places. I know how it's talked about. It's not like they're saying go out and say they're no good, but they definitely want the teams in their conferences represented in this playoff. And that's why you got to go 12-0. If you're sitting at 11-1, you're going to be on the bubble at 11-1. I looked back at Tulane from 2022 and other examples with the CFP playoff. If you're sitting there at one loss, you're really leaving yourself in a position where you're going to have to find somebody in that room that believes in you. I do look at the makeup of the committee. I like that a coach like Mike Riley is on the CFP committee. Get real football people on the committee instead of just TV people. But, I would support a system that just gave you all coaches. Get a bunch of former coaches in that room, let them be the judges. But I just think, it's a reminder, Puck, that you don't want to leave your fate in the hands of, the broadcasters on ESPN and Fox.
Yeah. There he is, John Canzano, brought to you by Zeke's Pizza Selection. They got best selection of pizzas in local craft Northwest beers. Visit Zeke'sPizza.com. You can follow John on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. Read all of the fabulous work. He's got latest stories on the Pac-12 Mountain West. The best place, the one-stop shop to go to, JohnCanzano.com for the very latest, the situation with the Pac-12, UNLV, Air Force. Again, follow him on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. Check out the radio show down there in Portland. I'm going to tell you, he's got college football. He'll talk a little. He's going to have some news on Major League Baseball in Portland. He does a daily check where he does Hobo by the River. It's a new feature that he has introduced.
Brought to you by the Willamette River.
Brought to you by the Willamette. Let's find a hobo who swims in the Willamette and see if he survives.
Hey, it's not going to take long, Puck. I think, the Pac-12 will make a move here. This legal filing's interesting, but they want to get to market with their media rights. Yeah. So stay tuned.
All right. And again, in case you missed it, it's going to be up on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and of course up at PuckSports.com. John, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
There he is, John Canzano. Again, John Canzano, BFT on Twitter, JohnCanzano.com there as well to get the very latest on college football. Just a very, very newsy day, and it will continue to be newsy. All right, we're going to talk a little baseball with our guy, Bill Krueger, who has been sitting backstage, and he's like, can you wrap it up so we can talk about the Mariners? Yeah, Bill, we're here. Bill Krueger joins us, brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. Go visit nativeyouthriseabove.org. I'm sad I said this to Jim Duquette the other day, Bill. Baseball season, at least it looks like for the M's, is winding down. So that means our visits are winding down, and I don't like it. Because I love talking baseball with you. You make me smarter. You push me. It's great. And I think our audience has, and I'll speak for our audience. I think our audience has enjoyed this year with you. It's been a little bit more Bill Krueger unfiltered, and I like that. I like that from Bill Krueger this year. Let's jump right into it. I want to first start because you love talking pitching. Let's talk about Bryce Miller. 12-8 now with an ERA of 2.94. What a great sophomore season for Bryce Miller.
He came on last year as, kind of an untested, not the number one draft pick like Kirby or Gilbert, and got his call up, and he was a guy with a real easy fastball that he was able to throw at the top of the zone and beat people with it. And then as the season wore on, the league caught up to him a little bit, and he began to realize that he had some deficiencies. Most young pitchers don't solve deficiencies quite as quick as Bryce Miller has. He developed a split finger that probably tops the staff. I mean, I would argue that it's better than Gilbert's because he can throw it for a strike. Or Gilbert can't throw his for a strike. So he's got an edge. He's really made this pitch a weapon. I mean, lefties hit over 300 off them last year, and they're hitting about 200 this year. That's a huge difference for him because he really struggled last year, the second half of the year, handling left-hand hitters. The other thing he's done, he's developed a two-seam fastball that he's throwing about 20% of the time, and he's able to command both sides of the plate. Plus, he's refined his breaking stuff a little bit, throwing the slider a little less, throwing his curveball a little bit more. Sometimes it gets a little slurvy. But as you saw last night, that was a great example of the additional weapons that Bryce Miller has developed because he threw his fastball just barely 50% of the time, and he's over 60% every game. So he leaned hard on his off-speed stuff, and boy, he dominated the Astros last night and really clutched up in the seventh inning when he had to.
Yeah, he's just been fun to watch. It's been, that's been a tough opponent for him, and I just think to watch a young player, a young pitcher grow that he has grown here from a year ago into the position he is in now. I mean, they have just an embarrassment of riches with these young pitchers, but he just has, he has that. Maybe it's a Texas thing. I don't know. It's just that DNA of just like, I am just going to go out and I'm going to try to shove it down your ass. I really shove it down your throat, I guess is the better term. But and he just has this willingness, this fight in him that he doesn't want to give in. And it's kind of that Texas culture with him. And it was great to see him have that performance that he did in that start against Houston because he's got so many family and friends there. First time his grandfather, who's in the 84, 85, has watched him pitch in person at the major league level. And he just, to follow up what was a great first season with what he's done this year, it was just been fun to watch all season long.
Yeah, it was a big game. And like you said, the Astros had their way with him a little bit. I mean, his last two turns this year were better, but in Houston, he's really struggled.
Yeah.
And it helps when Alvarez doesn't play.
Sure.
But that doesn't discredit what he did. He still had to deal with Tucker and the rest of that lineup. And, he's got a great makeup. There's a certain kind of ease to what he does. There's a certain quiet confidence in what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's a real practical thinker about who he is and what he needs to be successful. And he's made as many refinements as Logan Gilbert made in 1 year. They're different pitchers. Gilbert he's the kitchen sink. He wants to throw everything but his fastball, where what I like about Bryce Miller is even though he develops these other pitches, he still knows the calling card is the fastball, and fastball command rules. And in some respects, that makes him a better pitcher than Logan Gilbert. Logan's got long and lanky, and he's way down the rubber, and the ball gets on you, and he's got a little bit more velo, and he's having a huge year. Don't discredit that for a second. But I think in the long run, if you continue to command your fastball like Bryce Miller has, and if you're Logan Gilbert and you continue to pitch like you're, 38 years old and you don't have a fastball, then you're going to have problems. He pitches like Chris Bosio, except he throws 98. And again, don't misconstrue.
Sure.
Logan Gilbert is a hard working, smart guy that's having a huge year, and of course he toes the rubber tonight, and I expect big things from him.
Do you expect big things from it? It will be another night where they can prevent Houston from clinching the AL West. I think most of us they obviously still have a shot to get into the postseason. Most of us feel that the division is over, but no one they're competitors. You played 13 years in the big leagues. You guys are as competitive, that 1% of athlete, whether it's baseball, football, NBA, whatever it is, you're the 1%ers of just competitiveness. You don't want to see them celebrate in front of you. You don't see them running on their field and celebrating what is their fourth or fifth straight division title. I can't even remember how many it is in a row for them. So they have that in. They don't want to see that. Can they prevent it? And what hopes and shots do you give them that they can sneak into this thing?
they got a puncher's chance. I mean, they show up with the best pitching and pretty much in the card every night. Now, you could argue that Flamber Valdez is the opponent, and he's been pitching. He's a great pitcher, and he's in some kind of a run the last 2 months. He's pitched lights out, but he has not pitched very well against the Mariners here, north of 5 and scattery control when he faced the Mariners 3 times this year. And the Mariners pasted 2 losses on him. So Logan Gilbert is the best pitcher in this game tonight. And he's without Alvarez in the lineup, as long as he makes good pitches to Tucker, he's going to have his way with those right-hand hitters. I think he's going to pitch great. I think he's going to overwhelm them. The only problem is Gilbert's not as efficient as Miller. Why? We talked about it. Fastball command. If you have to throw the kitchen sink every time, that's when your pitch count comes up. You watched Hunter Brown last night, 98 with a doo-dog breaking ball, but he's got to throw 6 pitches, right? And so where does he end up with? 103 pitches after 6. And then he leaves, and then we take advantage of the cannon fodder and post 6 runs. But you know what? That's the name of the game. The Mariners are doing a much better job of making people pitch. It's like somebody came in and said, hey, today's lesson. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, this is Dan Wilson. Oh, this is Edgar Martinez. Maybe we should pay attention now. Maybe we should listen. Oh, we should use the big part of the field. Oh, we should think about having a 2-strike approach. I've never heard anything like that. Where does that come from? That's something I've never heard of. But what's happened? They've had a better 2-strike approach. They've been using the big part of the field. They're moving runners. They're hitting sac flies. They're a better scoring team. They're one of the better scoring teams in the month of September. Now, granted, Robles has been an instigator and an enforcer and made a lot of things happen. And Julio's kind of pulled himself out of whatever he was in for most of the year. I don't know that necessarily that, Edgar may be the hitting whisperer. He could be. And he may be whispering to Julio. And maybe Julio has learned something in a way from Edgar. I hope so. And things have obviously dramatically changed. And we took big advantage. What I'm getting to the point is it would be nice if Gilbert could be a little bit more efficient and pitch a little bit deeper in the game, because the weak point for this ball club right now is the bullpen. That's where they're weak. Munoz is great, but getting from the starter to Munoz is a whole different kettle of fish.
Am I off on this? It seems like since Wilson has taken over here lately that they have allowed these guys to go a little longer. Yeah,
they have, and in some points it's kind of burned them because they've given up some home runs. The home run ball in the bullpen, they're 4th in giving up home run balls after the All-Star break, this bullpen. And the starters have been singed late in games, and it's because we talked about it. These guys were trained to throw 80, 90 pitches. These guys are trained to throw 6. Once they get past 6, it's like unfound territory. It's Columbus. He's getting close to the edge of the earth. Is he going to fall off? Are the serpents going to eat him? Or is he going to actually land in the West Indies, not the East Indies? But that's a rounding error, big deal. But these are things that our pitchers haven't learned. Yeah. They haven't learned how to pitch in that part of the ball game. And I thought, Dan Wilson, he looked at the game with his educated eyes, not from the script, and said, no, Bryce Miller is my guy. 2 hits. Bryce Miller is my guy. 2nd and 3rd. Bryce Miller's my guy. He's got to get 2 outs. Now we got Pena, who's an all or nothing fastball hitter. Bryce Miller's my guy. That was the right move. Yeah. Go to the best part. Bryce Miller is the best option you have, unless Andres Munoz is going to come in that spot. Okay.
Yeah.
So in a roundabout way, it'd be nice to see Logan Gilbert have some efficiency, get a little deeper in the game. I mean, yes, I think Dan Wilson will want to lean on Gilbert and try to get him into the 7th and maybe the 8th inning. That would be fantastic.
The speaking of Julio, since he came back August 11th, and I'll pull up what he's done in September. Since he's come back, he's got a batting average of 304. He's slugging 503. He's I'll bore you with all the numbers. He's putting up the numbers that you thought he'd have in the beginning of the season. He's got an OPS of 863. Here, my question to you, and I asked this to Jim Duquette on Monday, so I'll kind of ask the same question in a way. What would you advise him to do to have the production that he has had late in the seasons? Because this is a trend for him where he puts up good numbers in August and September. what could he maybe work on or try to where when we start the season, he's kind of starts off this way, where it's not such a slow starter?
Well, I think he's learning. Obviously, he's a young player that we anointed with a giant contract, and he was the best player on the planet. And that's a tough place to sort of continue your career from. All that being said, I think he wants to be a great player, and I think he's determined to be that player. I think he's a little fundamentally flawed, and better pitching can take advantage of him because we've talked about it. He's got a forward press. He's got a long swing. And yes, it generates a lot of power right now, but he's still advantaging the lesser of the league. When he gets to the middle, when we're chasing the starter and that next group of pitching comes in, that's when he ropes. He ropes bad sliders. He ropes bad changeups. He ropes when he knows the fastball's coming. And people that he's facing aren't pitching him in like they did when he saw the better teams in the first half. Now, Hunter Brown handled him last night. But then once they brought in the second tier, because he didn't see, Bobby Abreu and Hader and the other guy, he didn't see those guys last night. He may see them tonight. Those guys are a little different cut. But yes, I would say it would be nice for him to be on time. It would be nice for him to get a little bit quicker to the ball. I know that this is just not that mysterious that he's long to the ball. But I mean, he's been so successful doing it his way that, and in his head, it's all a matter of him getting hot or just getting on time or just getting it going, right? That's just how he thinks about it because he's a great player. Now, maybe there's been some small things that Edgar's been able to tell him about getting a good ball to hit, being on time. And he's doing better. He's getting a better ball to hit, and he's on time. What I've always liked about him is I always thought he had kind of that Miguel Cabrera. He had all that power to right center, and he was going to be able to stay on pitches, right? And those are the guys, the Ramirez's and the Cabreras, those guys that can hit the ball to right center forever. They're the hardest guys to face because they get their money, which is when you make good pitches away, they get base hits, but they also slug going that way. They're the worst nightmare of all. Edgar Martinez was that kind of hitter, but Edgar could also hit the ball in. He could handle pitches. And it's another level for Julio to get to. His saving grace before he hurt his ankle, and it's still a saving grace, is the two hopper to short's a knock, man. He gets knocks because he can run, and that helps his batting average. But his slugging percentage, not that it's all about slugging, because slugging means doubles and triples. He's got to be a better slugger. But for this team, he's got to be a better slugger. He's got to knock down the strikeouts. The answer is I don't know the answer. You got to come to spring training and refine your approach.
Okay,
there you go.
But that's what I'm asking you, though. That's what I mean. He has a long swing in the beginning of the season. He has a long swing at the end of the season. I'm asking you, why does it work at the end and does it work in the beginning?
I don't know. I think some of it's scheduling, some of it's catching bad pitching. I don't know. Some of it's the second half pitchers tire.
Okay.
I don't know. He had a great August last year. This is what I saw. When I saw him as a rookie, I thought he was shorter to the ball. He handled the fastball in. I saw him on a 3-2 pitch, hit a 98-mile-an-hour fastball for a 3-run homer, a grand slam in Texas his rookie year. And he was quick to the ball, man. And he's not so quick anymore. Plus, he was chasing everywhere. It's the universe of pitches. I'll swing at anything. And you know what? Smart pitchers understand that. So I would say this. He has to get on time, and he has to get a better ball to hit. It would be nice for him to figure out how to be a little quicker to the ball. Okay. But those are things that can happen. I think the analytics are great, and there's a lot to learn about angles and how do you get to the ball and all that stuff and lots of video. But at the end of the day, having someone that he respects, one voice that can tell him little things to get him right and have a little bit of discipline to what he's doing, not just let him off the hook. Say, hey, that wasn't as good. You need to be here. That's where you weren't. Not so much all the analytics, please. And talk a little bit more about what's practical. Edgar was the best at being able to break the game down because he was not a superstar athlete. He was not a guy that had all the tools. He made himself a great player with all the little things. Does that mean that Julio Rodriguez is going to be like that? No, he's super talented. But he could learn a little bit from Edgar, and that could be the difference. I hope that Edgar's around him more.
I agree. Yeah, I said this the other day. I think that the organization needs to do whatever they can to entice Edgar to stay around. It doesn't sound like he wants to do it full time, but
right.
Boy, the difference that he hasn't made, at least to Julio, I just think you can see it. And I think the way that Julio's talked about it. And then on Julio's side, I would say this. I'm sure that you are really good friends with the guy in Florida that you flew up there. And I'm sure he's very good. I would say this. I would ask Julio, who do you think knows more about hitting? The guy in Florida or Edgar Martinez? And then he knows what the answer is. And I would just spend all off season, fly Edgar down, come up here and visit. It's lovely here in the winter, Julio, if you've never been.
It is. It's great.
It's 40. It's dark by 3:50. You'll love it. You'll love it here. And I would just spend an off season with him. And that's what if we're advising, you and me are on the Julio crisis team. We're advising him to drop the guy in Florida and just have Edgar show you everything he knows in the offseason.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. I don't know whether it's practical, but Edgar's obviously had some influence on him. It's too obvious to not notice that, right? He's going to have people around him that are trying to help him. He's got a huge probably payroll of people that cover everything from his dry cleaning to what he eats every day.
It's just like you.
All the stuff.
Like the same thing. Don't let don't fool anyone. Same deal.
Okay.
Same deal for you. Hey, before you go, and we'll do another couple of these depending how the season goes.
Yeah.
I know you're excited to get rid of me. I'm not excited to get rid of you, but
we can keep going.
I wanted to ask you this. You played 13 years. The first 5 years of your career, you spent with the Oakland Athletics. They are going to play their final series homestand starting tonight in Oakland. The owner came out with a letter yesterday that was tone deaf. Playing there, what that organization means to you, what that logo means to you, what it meant to you to be an Oakland Athletic.
Means a lot. Sad to see it go away. I know everybody, loves to make fun of the Oakland Coliseum. And when I played there in the 80s, it wasn't a dump. And we had a lot of good teams and a lot of great players. And they're the one team that took a chance on a big left-hander that played mostly basketball, that maybe could pitch. That was a big chance they took on me, and I'm grateful. And I have a lot of fond memories. I mean, I played with a lot of great players there. Ricky Henderson, Don Sutton, Dave Kingman, Dwayne Murphy, Mike Davis, Mickey Tettleton, even Reggie Jackson was there for a minute. Even Joe Morgan was there for a minute. Tremendous players. And of course, the Bash brothers came along right about the time I was leaving, and Canseco and McGuire, and they took off and became a championship team. But it's all part of my story. And I have lasting memories of fond times at Oakland and wearing the green and gold. And we were multi-uniforms before they became popular. When I joined the team in '83, we had a yellow top, a green top. We had gray on the road. We had those colored tops on the road. And then we had a white uniform we wore on the weekends that was sort of like an old English D kind of style uniform that was like Detroit. So we were way ahead of the curve when it comes to uniforms, the white shoes, and the yellow sanitaries. Oh, yeah. There's some cool schemes. And if you think back to the teams prior to that, Billy Ball, then you go back into the 70s, with Reggie Jackson and Tennis and Rudy and Campaneris and Catfish Hunter. And I mean, it's a great story, and it's sad to see it go away. It's much like, our Sonics, which are guests coming back, green and gold, and you know what? It's failed ownership for sure. It's a city that probably didn't have the muscle, but there should have been a way, and baseball didn't help them. baseball said, oh, yeah, that's right. You can't go to San Jose. This is quite a while ago because that's the Giants' territory. Now, wait a minute. San Jose's further away from San Francisco than Oakland is. So don't give me that. Everything that they tried didn't work. And this ownership group, it's appalling to see what they're doing.
Well said. I'm sorry for you and everybody, all your teammates and everyone. And sorry for baseball. It's what I grew up with was the Oakland A's, and then of course and then their association with Tacoma. You kind of felt like you knew that team with the Tigers, and before the Rainiers.
I was a Tiger.
Yeah, it's just sad all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, you're the best. We'll continue this for a little bit longer. Hopefully the Mariners sneak in. That would be great. Bill Krueger.
Keep the faith. One more game tonight, they win, and just keep putting the pressure on these teams that don't seem to want it. So let's
no one
see what happens.
No one wants it. Bill Krueger every Tuesday with us, brought to you by Rise Above Foundation. In case you miss it, up on YouTube. You can listen to it, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Of course, up at PuckSports.com. All right, Bill, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
See ya. Thanks.
There he is, Bill Krueger, talking all things baseball and all things Seattle Mariners. With us every single Tuesday. We talk a little baseball, and it's just, it's sad what's happening in Oakland. It just is. It's awful. We went through it, right? The Sonics fans, right? Where you can see the Sonics stuff up there a little bit, right? Where's my Sonics? There it is. My Sonics pennant up there. It's a great pennant. And Ricky Henderson, the Bash Brothers. Oakland was, when I was a kid growing up, even though that I never switched allegiances and I was always a Mariners fan, Oakland was the cool team. That they were the cool team to root for, and to see it ripped out of that community is just a sad state of affairs. Shouldn't have been that way, and Major League Baseball should have done more to keep them there. And then they're going to go to Vegas. It's going to be a failure in Vegas. It just is. All right. Before we get going here, it's Hey, What the Puck. It's brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle, which is your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. I mentioned this earlier when we had John Canzano about the comments that Joel Klatt made this past weekend during a Fox game with Ohio State. In case you didn't hear it or see it, this is what Joel Klatt had to say.
Rough one for Hughes last night. Stanford going up on the road, getting that win, and the classic ACC battle of Stanford and Syracuse.
Stanford, new member of the ACC after the Pac-12. Saw teams leave the conference. Pac-12 still alive, though. They're getting ready to retool it with Oregon State and Washington State leading the way. James Peoples on the run.
I almost said something I probably shouldn't have.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just like, they're expanding. It's going to be like generic. It's like generic medication.
I don't understand the comments. I mean, now that as Canzano pointed it out, and Joel Klatt works for Fox, so certainly he's going to have an agenda. But I just don't understand the unnecessary shot at both Oregon State and Washington State. They're trying to do something. No one is pretending. If you are a Beaver fan or a Cougar fan like me, no one is pretending that this is the Pac-12. Like, it's the same Pac-12 that had Washington and Oregon and the LA schools. No one's doing that. What these two schools are trying to do is find their way in this new college football landscape, a landscape in which Fox and ESPN ruined. And college football is always going to be massively popular. And once the games start, you get sucked into the games. But they've ruined it. I mean, they've ruined the regionality of it and what made it important. I thought about that a lot last week. I don't know, how Husky fans thought about their game last week. I think probably cool. It was a beautiful day, and you could sailgate and all that. But they opened up conference play against Northwestern. I mean, really? That can't excite you as much as you want it to think it excites you. You can't. And it's not, and I'm not bashing them. They had to do what was right for them in their current financial situation, didn't want to be left behind. Totally get it. I totally understand it. Just saying that the popularity of the sport was based on you being in the same time zone and playing those teams, not traveling across the country. I mean, I'll just ask you, Husky fans, I'm just curious. There is probably a large majority of you right now that's not excited about a Friday night game, 5 o'clock against Rutgers. That doesn't do it for you. You know, when this new Pac-12 comes around and, you know, we're playing Fresno State on 7 o'clock at night. I mean, it's okay. It's fine, but it's not Arizona State. It's not, you know, it's not Oregon. It's not playing Stanford. I mean, there are going to be some advantages of this new Pac-12. When you go play Fresno State and Boise State on the road or Colorado State, the stadium will be filled, unlike Stanford, unlike Cal, unlike ASU, unlike Arizona. So there'll be some advantages to that because those people care more about it. But I just don't get the Joel Klatt's, you know, slamming of the conference. And I'm really annoyed with how he has slobbered all over Colorado. Deion Sanders hasn't improved the football team. 2 years before he arrived, as I told Canzano, they were 4-8. Last year, they were 4-8. This year, they probably will be, I don't know, 5-7. They're not a good football team. But yet he goes on, you know, social media. What a culture change. What an absolute change that Deion Sanders has made. He's made a difference with two players, and that one being his son, the other being Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is probably the best college football player right now, and you make an argument should be taken number 1 overall. Shedeur Sanders, many people feel will be top 10, maybe top 5 pick. When those guys leave, I believe Deion leaves. I don't think he's sticking around. I think he's out when they're out. But they haven't beaten a single team since he's been the head coach there. No one. Look at who they beat last year. Look at their records. They didn't beat one single team, I believe, with a winning record. Baylor this year, Baylor was 3-9 last year. That's not a good football team. They should have lost to North Dakota State this year. So Joel Klatt and this agenda that he has, and John is right. These networks are going to do, Fox and ESPN are going to do whatever they can to keep someone like Washington State or Boise State, well, they got one loss, but let's say Boise State was undefeated, out of this because it's not theirs. And the SEC and the Big Ten, everyone knows, let's not be fooled. They are going to run who's in the college football playoff of those 12 teams. They will pick those teams. The networks will. ESPN and Fox are paying too much money not to have a say, especially ESPN, right? Not to have a say who's going to play in there. And when the SEC goes, no, we want the majority of the teams in there. We pay you like all this money. We need to be in there. They're going to win out. That's just the way that's the reality of it. Hell, I think even if Washington State goes undefeated, I don't know. I still don't think they've got a shot. I still think you would be on the outside looking in. They don't want him in there. I mean, that's a tall task for them to run the table would be, that's a lot to ask. There's a lot of landmines in there, and that defense really isn't good enough to run the table. So, all right, that's Hey What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, North Seattle franchise. Also, click on that QR code. It will take you right there. All right, the PuckSports mobile app is out. I know there's some problems with it. Some of you have been able to stream. Some of you haven't been able to stream. It's knocked some people off. There's some bugs, of course, all these things that we've got to work out. And there's really no way to work it out until you launch it because you can't test it. You can't test without being live. So for those who did struggle or it didn't work for you, promise we're working on it. When I say we, Jacob's working on it. Jacob, the app guy. That's what we'll call him. And so we'll get that fixed out. We'll get that hopefully fixed here soon. Android users, again, I'll mention it one more time. I know it's not in Google Play. It will be there soon. You got to go through steps and processes with Google Play, just like we did with Apple on the App Store. We did the Apple or the iPhone one first because we have more users that use the iPhone than use Android. But Android users, it will be in Google Play shortly. When it is, I will announce it. All right. What do we got? In case you missed everything, it will all be up later today on YouTube. Please go to YouTube. All the videos that we post from today's show, we break them all up. Also, Canzano will be by himself. Rob Staton will be by himself. Bill Krueger will be by himself. I post up the entire show, and then I break out every individual interview and post it up there. Same thing for Apple and Spotify in case you miss anything. So if you missed Canzano from earlier today and said, well, I don't want to sit through the entire show, I want just John Canzano, that will be up on Apple and Spotify, Canzano by himself, along with the entire show. And then on YouTube, if you want to watch it, I edit that all out and place Canzano up there on YouTube as well. So that will all be up there usually around 1 o'clock is when we release it. When I go long, like I'm going along today, it might be a little after 1 o'clock. So go there, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and always PuckSports.com. Feedback, as always, Puck at PuckSports.com, or hit me up on Twitter at Puck2040. All of it is great. Coming up tomorrow on the show, what is tomorrow, Wednesday? We'll have Ryan Divish, Danny Kelly, talking all things NFL and fantasy football with Danny. Of course, Mariners with Divish. We will have our Cougars podcast coming out tomorrow, The Old Crimson, with Paul Sorensen and Jim Moore. And then Jamie Vinnick from Coug Fan stops by to give a practice report. That will be out tomorrow morning, exclusively just on our podcast channels. And also Cougs Corner with wide receiver Kyle Williams will be out tomorrow morning. Both those podcast only features on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, brought to you by Flatstick Pub and, of course, the Cougar Collective. All right, I think I've covered everything. Whew. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, of course, we promise to be better.
No shirt, no shoes, no dice.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!